I'm at my local bookstore, I really like to go through the DIY section, and there, a few years back, I found this really cool book, Dyer by Abigail, and she shows the process on collecting natural dyes and dyeing your fabric so it won't bleed out. And in this video I'll take you with me. When I first got the book, I started collecting natural dyes, onion peels, old coffee grounds, pomegranate peels, ferns, willow foliage, etc. And then when I had a huge arsenal of natural dyes, I started looking for fabric, and while thrifting I found old bed sheets, napkins, tablecloths, anything white really, and started dyeing those things with that. And before I start with the whole process, hi, I am Claudia. I am documenting my projects here on YouTube, and I'm really happy you're here and watching, and have fun! To desize your fabric, you have to first wash it on the highest temperature in your washing machine, and afterwards you boil it for 2 hours with detergent and washing soda. I myself have second-hand fabric, that's why it's not really needed, but I thought I still follow the process to the book, so I make sure it will be dyed afterwards. Now that the fabric is very clean, I rinse it out in the washing machine and let it dry. I stain my fabric with aluminium acetate, and with that process, when I dye it, it will be color fast. First I weigh my fabric and write down the amount, because this is important for later. Then I let it soak in water for at least an hour. While the fabric is soaking, I take a big pot, fill it with water and start boiling it. While the water starts boiling, which will take some time because it's such a huge amount, I can prepare my aluminium acetate solution. We need 5% of the dry weight of the fabric of aluminium acetate. For that, you can take the amount of the fabric, like 100 grams, divide it by 100, which is 1 gram, and multiply it by 5, so 5 gram aluminium acetate by 100 gram fabric. When you measure it, put it in a stainless steel bowl, because if there is rust or anything else, it could change the chemical process. Then boil some water in a kettle and dissolve the aluminium acetate while whisking it, so everything is dissolved in the water. You might need a bit more water if you have more aluminium acetate, and just see that everything is dissolved or it won't work. When your mixture is ready, your water in your big pot is now probably boiling, and you can add your aluminium acetate solution to that water and add also the fabric you soaked before. This now needs to simmer, really only simmer, not boil, for an hour, and after an hour you can take it away from the heat and let it cool down overnight in the solution. It's important that it stays in the solution so it can work its way into the fabric. And the next day you can take it out of the solution, rinse it, I do that in the washing machine, it's the easiest, and hang it up to dry. Now it is finally time to dye our fabrics, and for that we have to prepare the dye bath. And every natural dye has different properties and needs to be treated accordingly, and here is a short overview on more or less a guideline on how to proceed with different types of natural dyes. I myself have collected a lot of things and dried them, so I started a few days in advance and soaked those things, so the fibers are softer and the pigments are easier reachable while cooking. Not boiling, most of the things shouldn't be boiled. Generally speaking, you need 100 gram of dye for 100 gram of dry fabric. So the ratio is 1 to 1, and of course if you use more or less dye, the color will be more or less strong. Here again, we soak the fabric first so that the dye will spread evenly in the fabric. To dye the things, you first fill your pot and add the dye, to make sure it doesn't overflow, and then start warming it slowly for about 20 minutes. Depends on if you have induction or gas or electric, whatever you use. It takes longer or shorter. Just make sure not to boil it because the pigments could go bad if you do that. Happened to me with one of the first batches, so I learned from my mistake. Let it simmer for an hour. Before I add my fabric to the dye bath, I sieve the dye bath and then put it also through a cloth, so there is nothing left but the pigments. Because if there is organic things sticking to your fabric, it won't dye very evenly. It is still a natural dye you're using, so and you have a little pot and the fabric doesn't have extremely a lot of space in it, so it will be a bit uneven. But to prevent to have like blotches on it, you really should sieve your dye bath first. When you've done that, you can add your soaked fabric in the pot. Just keep it warm, no boiling, no simmering, nothing like that. Just keep it warm, and after an hour you can take it away, and then you leave it at least a day. I would do 2 or 3 days in the bath until it is dyed through thoroughly. And you can take it out, rinse it, you can water your plants with the rest, or you can still use this fabric bath to dye some more, but it will certainly not be as strong anymore than before. Now a little optional part, which I liked very much because it's so fascinating and instantly. The whole process till now is very slow. You wait a day, you have to do something, you wait another day, you wait 2 to 3 days, and it's a bit boring actually, because you don't see this instant change in the fabric. But there is this way with the iron stain where you use that, you put your fabric in and take it out, and you see how the color changes. That's very fascinating. To prepare the iron stain, you need something rusty. Could be an old nail, could be anything really. I used some old chain that was rusty all over and put it in a jar with 1 part white vinegar and 2 parts water. Make sure to leave the jar open because some gas will be part of this chemical reaction. And then after a few days, when the water starts to be like a bit orange, the iron solution is ready. When your fabric is dyed and still in the dye bath, you can take it out, put the iron solution in the dye bath, and then put the fabric shortly in there. As soon as you see that the fabric color is changing, take it out again and rinse it, because the iron solution will damage your fabric if you leave it in too long. I really love this whole process, the unpredictability and all these really nice natural colors, and some are so vibrant, others are more muted, and also Shibori worked with it, which I'm very happy about. And this process of changing the dye with the iron solution was so fascinating and took me a bit back into chemistry and how this all works. Especially what I liked was this unpredictability. I sometimes had very different outcomes even though I used the same dye, but the fabrics were different, and I think that's the interesting part in working with nature and not with something chemically generated which ensures everything is the same. And I think this individuality, and that speaks to me. And I'm sure everywhere on our planet there is something you can use to dye fabric with, and I think that's so cool that then there is regionally specific dyes which you don't have somewhere else. And yeah, and also you could only use the peels from preparing food and dye things. I mean, one of the strongest dye was the one with onion peels, and that's so cool. And everyone uses onion in their kitchen, I think. I have now a lot of beautiful fabrics. I already used some to make cargo pants, others to make table mats for eating, but there is still so much more to use up. And if you have a suggestion what I could sew with them, please leave a comment. I have some ideas, and others I really don't want to cut up because I like them so much. And if you don't want to miss out my next projects, please subscribe. See you all soon enough. And not to forget, if you want to try yourself, I really recommend the book Wild Dyer, link below. Bye!